This bungalow here is something of a conundrum. It looks like it's probably a 1930s build, but I suspect it's been reconstructed. It's also probably an infill development. It's got a very strange shape where it's followed the contours of the plot, and it's in a rather lovely position adjacent to a church, so there's probably going to be a lot of demand for it, but in the end there is something very fundamentally wrong with it. It has brick-faced cavity walls up to windowsill height, and these are rendered above. There's the left-hand side gable wall, which is interesting. We'll find out later. And there's a modern synthetic slate roof covering, and nice clean lead valleys as well. And the chimney looks to me like it's got something about the 1980s about it, so probably rebuilt. There's the damp-proof course at the front of the bungalow. 2 bricks above ground level, as it should be. And along the right-hand side of the bungalow you can see that the ground level's rising, so that's going to encroach upon the damp-proof course at the back of the bungalow, which it does, especially where it's extended. A little render cracking, that's alright. Nothing unusual there. A bit more cracking between the window and the verge of the roof, so a little bit of thermal movement, a bit of loosening of the render, but nothing serious going on. And there's the back of the bungalow. This is the extension. You can see the surface of the ground is up above floor level there, so that has implications with regard to whether dampness is going to travel through the wall and into the interior of the property. A felt flat roof, which looks alright. It's a bit mossy, but it's not defective. And there's the rear roof slope, which also looks fairly good, clean and tidy. There's the back door. I've probed it to the right of the back door with a damp meter, and it's dry. And to the left it says at risk. So potentially a little bit of moisture finding its way from the ground through the cavity and into the interior of the property, or it could be something completely different, like water from the cat's bowl. We don't know. However, here is the roof space, and this is where the problem lies. That's the left side gable wall, which was the neighbour's side, which I couldn't access fully. And there's the right side gable wall along the little path between the house and the churchyard. But the problem is that these gable walls are only a single skin. So whereas the internal wall of any cavity wall would be the load-bearing structure, here there is only the external skin of the wall, and there you can see are the wall ties reaching out for an internal wall which terminates somewhere down there. There's a sort of half-baked masonry column picking up the back edge of that, or the end of that purlin, and it looks like somebody's twisted one wall tie round to make contact with it. And at the front end of the building, the purlin's not reaching the wall at all. Well, the lower one, that upper one does, so the purlin there is supported on the external skin of the cavity wall, and it looks like it's been reused from elsewhere, because as you can see it's all stripy, where laths have previously been nailed to it, so that's reclaimed, isn't it? Left side gable wall, once again wall ties everywhere with no wall to tie onto, and the purlin end built into the external skin of the cavity wall, not the internal one. So the problem is, I suppose, if we were building a new property, we would have a load-bearing internal wall tied to an external wall, so you'd have a double skin of masonry. You would then have metal straps fixing the internal skin of the wall cavity to the roof structure, so the walls are given extra rigidity by the roof and to the roof, whereas I think here what we've got is a gable wall which is going to be super vulnerable to destruction by strong winds. There's the front gable wall, and that's got no masonry to it at all, and from here I don't intend to start trying to clamber through all that insulation. It looks like it's mostly finished internally with asbestos cement panels, that grey stuff. So there you have it, a building which comes out of the ground as a fairly conventional 1930s bungalow, and then by the time we get to the roof it seems to be a confusing and rather cobbled together sort of structure. I mean, that's all just a little bit strange, isn't it? Somebody's put a mirror there just to... that's a mirror, that is just to confuse you. We did a chimney come out of there at one point. All a bit odd. This is a terrace of houses that was built in 1904. We can have a look in the roof in a moment, just for a little surprise. That's a slightly bigger terrace of houses that was built in 1906. So these are Edwardian houses, but they're not your average Edwardian houses, because there's a bit of a surprise in the roof. Shall I tell you now? Well, what it is that they have concrete walls. So the party wall, and I believe probably the spine wall between the front and rear reception rooms, etc., is concrete. Not what you'd expect to find in a house of this age. Well, here is the roof space, but unfortunately it has been the subject of a roof space conversion. So most of the party walls that we want to look at are hidden from view. However, it does have that eaves cupboard, so we can go and have a look in there. And there is one of the party walls. What does it look like? A 1950s wimpy no finds, and that's a poured concrete construction type. But this place was built in 1904, I think I said. And there also, not that it's relevant really, you can see the purlin from the house next door coming through the wall. And there's the party wall on the other side, where they seem to have brought the concrete up to the underside of the purlins and finished off the top of the wall in natural stone. And this is another job which wasn't quite what I expected, because this is Brock Street in the heart of Georgian Bath, and these are, what, 4-storey Georgian townhouses. Here comes a bus full of tourists. Open top bus. There they go, having a lovely time. Yeah, it's a Georgian townhouse, so that's what I was expecting to survey, but turned out it wasn't quite as straightforward as that. In the, well, even now, but anyway, the Germans produced a guidebook called the Baedeker Guidebook, and the 1937 version of the Baedeker Guidebook included various lovely places in England, including Bath, and Hitler thought he'd really piss the British off if he bombed them. And so this house we're looking at now took a bomb straight through the middle of it. So it turned out that all there was of the original property was the front and rear elevations, and everything else was rebuilt. I was doing a survey of the top floor flat only, so how long, I wonder, was I going to walk around the building before I realised that things weren't quite as they should be. Well, here's a clue. This is a very utilitarian looking staircase, and the staircase itself was concrete where exposed. So that's not Georgian, wouldn't comply with current building regulations, but quite clearly not part of the original property. There are a few clues internally, like there wasn't much of a roof frame exposed, but that was modern. But if you take a very long walk around the back of the building and do a bit of trespassing, you're confronted with this. So it's got a flat roof. I don't think the Georgians built flat roofs, and then you can just about make out that the top of that circular building is of different construction to the walls below. So I think that area I've highlighted is an upward extension to what was originally there. Welcome to the Georgian city of Bath. There's a tour bus coming down Brock Street, and there's a nice view of the rooftops of a terrace of Georgian townhouses. And here is a parapet gutter, so that's the house next door, so the rainwater's spilling out of that parapet gutter into the gutter of this house. There's a breeze block sitting in it for reasons unknown. And then it spills off over that way where you've got a party wall, and it looks like the end of this particular gutter, so there must be a downpipe on the street out there. And there's a little bit of slate in there, so the slate roof covering's delaminating a little bit. There it is, looks alright, doesn't it, really? That little square you can see between the two windows is where rainwater spills through the roof space, probably on some little timber framed lead lined trough from the valley in the middle of the roof down into the parapet gutter in front. There's another one in the house next door. Different style over there though. Those roofs don't have one as far as I can see. They do have asbestos cement slates on top of them. And this is the view from the back of the same building, and it's not quite so pretty, is it? Still central Bath, but look, you've got asbestos cement roofs over garages, asbestos cement roofs over that rather dour looking industrial building, if that's what it is. And over there, look, there's a brick chimney. Not allowed to do that anymore. You can't go putting brick chimneys up in our lovely Georgian Bath stone city. And well, there's just the skyline of Bath, and loads more asbestos cement slates over that roof there. Got some bars at the window as protection from falling, and much needed. If you look down there, it's a long way down. This is a view of the valley between a pair of pitched roofs over a Georgian townhouse in Bath. It's a view you don't see very often, but you can see how the valleys run from one house to another, possibly interrupted by a party wall over there, or possibly interrupted by a satellite dish. That's not my house, so I've got no business going over there to find out. But certainly the rainwater goes that way, off this roof, and away via somebody else's roof. And also, whilst it's a grade 1 or 2 listed building in a conservation area, in a World Heritage area, it's still a good idea to use cheap concrete tiles out of sight, which is what these are. And a nice little view of some chimney pots. Here's some fairly typical damage being done to the masonry. We've got 3 kinds of aerial fixings attached there, and the one in the middle there, you can see there are evidently some sort of ferrous fixings into the stone which are rusting. Rusting involves expansion, and this expansion process is breaking up the stone, so that ought to be removed.